Hi, I'm Michelle. Welcome to Seven Part Harmony, a place where you can celebrate who you are today and increase your love for yourself, others, and God. Hi, welcome to Seven Part Harmony. I'm Michelle, and today we're going to talk about taking medication and the strong feelings many people have both for taking medication and against medication. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. Many years ago, I was just taking a flight, and I decided I wanted a book. Now, it was during a time when I didn't have a lot of money, so I was really careful with my money, and I always said just a little prayer when I walked into the bookstore. Heavenly Father, I'd like to buy a book. I'd like it to be interesting. I'd like to learn something, and I'd like it to be applicable, something that would help me right now because I don't have a lot of time to read a lot of books. So I did my thing. I went into this bookstore at the airport, and I picked out a book. The book was about two brothers. One brother was in a mental institution. The other brother would visit him and was really having a trying time over his brother's illness. So I read the book, and as I got about 3/4 of the way through the book, I thought, how come I relate to the brother in the hospital instead of the brother outside the hospital? That really stayed with me. And I thought about it a lot. And one day a thought, maybe an inspired thought, but at least a thought came into my mind. I was like, my father was a pharmacist, but my mother was what I lovingly call a holistic nut. I really took more after the ideas of my mother, that drugs really weren't good, that I could cure things with herbs and big tall glasses of wheatgrass that I would burp up all day long, and brewer's yeast, and I was kind of into really horrible tasting remedies, right? But the thought came into my mind, what if you actually have something and you need medication? My biases were so strong against medicine, and my judgment about other people who took medicine were very strong. If I actually needed it, how would I ever know? Well, so I went and did what I always do when I am in a quandary. I knelt down by the side of my bed and I explained this little scenario to God. I reiterated about my father, who I adored but still was a pharmacist, and about my mother and this judgment and bias I had about medicine. And I asked him, if I needed something, could you tell me in a way that I would know? Because I don't actually think I could take anything if I didn't know I needed it. And I ended my prayer, and as I stood up for my prayer, it was, I don't know if you know what a ticker tape is. It's kind of an old-fashioned thing, but it comes out of a machine that reads the stock market. And it's a long strip of paper. And it has kind of computer writing on it. And as I stood up from my prayer, in my mind, I could see a ticker tape in my brain and a word. And all I could see was the spelling, S-T-R-A, T-E-R-A. What the heck is that? I don't know how to say it. How do you say it? Strattera. And so I decided to go look up what is Strattera. And I found out that Strattera is a medication for people with adult ADD. What? I mean, I was like stunned, shocked, embarrassed. I tell you that I did not go out and obtain a prescription for Strattera. It felt like too large of a stretch. Even the idea since I knew that ticker tape thing came from like heaven, clearly there is something going on with me. And it sounds like it's ADD. But it was a long time before I could fully embrace that idea. So we'll fast forward maybe 6 years. And as a 48-year-old, I've decided to go to school at BYU, Idaho. And when I first get to school, it's going great. I have A's, something I never had before. Like I used every trick to like circumvent becoming overwhelmed, which is a killer for anybody with ADD. Never be overwhelmed. I planned, I plotted, I followed my plan, and I did a really good job that first year of never becoming overwhelmed. And then something happened. I started to see my grades go from A's to C's. And I did not know what was happening. And I noticed that I was really having a hard time reading. If you know anyone with ADD or you have it, you know you can read a line or a paragraph and be like, oh, what did I just read? I'll read it again. Oh, I didn't pay attention that time either. Let me try it again. And you read it again, and you still don't know what you read at the end. And that's what was happening. So the text that I was reading seemed to become more complicated, and along with that, the symptoms of the ADD really started to come forward. But I did not want to take medication. So one day I'm walking down the hill. In Rexburg at BYU, Idaho, psychology is at the top of the hill and broadcasting is at the bottom of the hill. And I am coming down the hill and I'm having a little conversation with my higher power about how I'm not doing very well and how I'm disappointed that my grades are falling and how I don't know what to do about it. And then I say, I know I have ADD. I think you already told me that, but I really don't want to take medication. And then I had what I think was an inspired thought. And it sounded like this to me. Michelle, look around this campus. Just look around at all of these students. Every one of them is learning something to bless the life of one of their brothers and sisters on this earth, including those who are studying medicine. Oh, I just had that shift, right? A shift. I really needed to have it. And I went down immediately to the health center and I got an appointment. The woman at the health center went way beyond the call of duty. Strattera was ridiculously expensive. She found a way to get it for free as long as she administered it to me. And so while I was there, I medicated with Strattera. But before I left, we had a conversation and she looked at me and she said, Michelle, when you leave here, you may be fine, but you're not going to be able to afford Strattera because it's not going to go generic for another few years and you won't be done with your education, your master's degree, and maybe PhD by that time. But there is another drug, Adderall. I was like, oh, don't talk to me about Adderall. That is speed. I was horrified. And she's like, I know that you don't want to take Adderall, but it costs $6. And I just want you to remember it. if you ever need it. So I was like, well, thanks for the advice, but no thank you. I'm never taking speed, right? And then I get my master's degree, and I did fine, and I started into my PhD, and I was doing great, and I was doing all my coping mechanisms one after another, and I was never getting overwhelmed. And then it got to the end of my last year, and my daughter in Poland was going to have twins, and she wanted us to come out. And so I made sure that I had handed in my comprehensive exams, which were 4 papers worthy of publication in a journal. So they were kind of a big deal. And then I planned when I came back, I had time to work on my dissertation and defend by the time of graduation. So I turned in all of my comprehensive exams. I went off to Europe, and both my husband and I got horribly ill with something that wasn't detected and cured for 6 months. So ill, my husband was dreaming that he died before we could get him back to America. So when we were done with the babies, I come home and I get back the first feedback on my comprehensive exams. And all I can see is red, a sea of red, underline, underline, crossed out. Holy cow, I'm in trouble. At the same time, I got all prepared for my dissertation presentation, and the day before my presentation, they pulled me in and they said, I'm sorry, we know you're supposed to present tomorrow, but the committee has decided you need to change your entire method. And it was suggested casually that maybe a new dissertation chair would be in order. So now I am really overwhelmed. I have to start basically over on my dissertation, and my comprehensive exams are a sea of red. And I am just sinking. I am just sinking. It's just like, this is that feeling that I've had all my life. I know I'm going to fail. I know I don't have the capacity to pull out of this. So one day I think I'm supposed to be a counselor, right? What do counselors teach? Let's meditate, right? Not something I really had done very much of at all. But this day I decide, I sit down on this little couch and I decide I'm gonna meditate, right? And I put my hands down, I close my eyes open, I'm like, what's that sound? I'm like, that's funny. That was the refrigerator that just turned off. It was the refrigerator. I was like, okay. I walk over to the refrigerator, I unplug it, I come back, I sit down. I close my eyes. I start to breathe. I'm like, what's that sound? I hear the clock. Oh, it's so loud. I didn't know my clock was so loud. I walk over, I grab the clock off the wall, I take the battery out, I throw it down, put it on the counter, go back and sit down again. I close my eyes. Oh, ow. I hurt, like something's hurting emotionally. Oh, I know what it is. I'm worried about David, my son. Get up off the couch, get down on my knees. Dear Heavenly Father, I'm trying to meditate. I'm just realize that I'm doing it and that I'm in pain about David. So I'm just gonna hand him over to you because I don't know what to do for him or about him, and I'm just gonna let you handle it. And then I'm gonna go back and meditate, okay? So I get back out on the couch and I put my hands down, I close my eyes. All of a sudden, the phone over here starts to buzz. And I look down and it says, David. Okay. I answer the phone. And my sweet son says, Mom, what's wrong? I mean, really, what's going on? That kind of felt like a miracle all by itself. But I was like, David, I am so overwhelmed. I mean, I'm like crawling on my belly. And I just don't know what to do. He said, Mom, can I make a suggestion? And I said, yes. He said, I know you're not going to want to do it. It's the last thing you're going to want to do. But would you go to the health center and tell them that you need a prescription for Adderall? And I promise you, if you do, you will graduate. Oh, wow, I've heard that before. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this is not the first time this has been suggested to me. I say, okay, son, you're right. It isn't something I would normally do, but I will go and ask. I kind of thought, well, the doctor there isn't going to even know me, and he's certainly not going to write me a prescription for something like that. But I went and I talked to the doctor, and honestly, when I told him my situation, he could not write that prescription fast enough. And I went home and I took my first dose, and I decided to try it out. So I pulled up my list of references for my dissertation, and I sat and went through 25 pages, and I had so much fun. It makes me actually want to cry right now, just to talk about what it felt like to be able to focus, to sit down and do what it was I needed to do, what I was responsible to do, and have the power to do it and follow it to completion. Now, I did graduate. I did pass my comprehensive exams. I did finish my dissertation. And yes, it was the day before graduation that I finished it all. But what had been impossible, which may be a theme of some of my videos, what had been impossible became impossible. All of us have like prejudices and judgments. It really isn't a bad thing because it helps us to make decisions quickly, and it helps us to have like a bar or a standard that we want to keep. But sometimes even what we think are the most righteous judgments really can be in our way for our own progression. So I would suggest that maybe if you could identify one or two, you might take them to Heavenly Father and say, what do you think about these things that I feel? Or what do you think about the fact that I said I'm never going to do this, or I would never be like her, or I'm never going to work with this person, or I'm never going to become some profession or whatever? What if I opened my mind to that? It's kind of a brave thing to do. And I'm not going to say that it's easy. You see how long it took me. But even contemplating something is the beginning of change. So have fun. I'd love to hear like what your judgments are and what your experience of challenging them might be. Remember, professional therapy, counseling, and coaching are valuable tools to help you live a more full and harmonious life. Click below for more information on coaching.